everybody. I have had several of you reach out and ask me what to do if a child will not go back into the playroom with you. They refuse to go back with you. They won't leave mom and dad. They won't leave the lobby. Something along those lines of a scenario. And then also when a child wants to leave the session early and go back to mom, go back to the lobby, not stay in the playroom, dash out of the playroom, try to escape somewhere else. So I wanted to give you some thoughts on how to handle both of those situations because they are similar yet different. And then I think we can all benefit from understanding how that works. So when we're talking about not going back to the playroom, I think we have to recognize some foundational expectations of how to handle that. So first and foremost, in a child-centered model, we will never force a child to go back with us. So, several questions have been, do I pick them up and carry them? Do I insist that they go back? How do I force them to come back to the playroom? We don't ever. And I attended a conference with Gary Landreth a long time ago, and he said that he thinks that he has the success he has with very shy, timid, scared children, that they actually will end up going back with him because he never forces them to. And so the disclaimer is always, oh, they're never going to go back and play with you. They won't ever go anywhere with a stranger. They won't ever go to a strange place. And he said that kids eventually do with him because he doesn't force them. And that's the premise of the child-centered non-directive model, because you have to believe that the child knows what they need. They have to be ready in their own way and in their own time, and they have to make the decision that they feel safe and ready to handle whatever it is. So if that means you spend the entire session in the lobby, so be it. That means if you think that it's not valuable to sit in the lobby and therefore you feel like your job is to get them back to the playroom, that is just not true. Therapy can happen anywhere as long as you and the child are present. So I've had therapy sessions outside of my office on a sidewalk. I've had therapy sessions looking in the pond for fish behind my office. I've had therapy sessions in the lobby. I've had therapy sessions under chairs in the lobby. I've had therapy sessions all kinds of places because it's about the relationship and it's about you and the child. So therefore, if the child is not ready to go back either the first time or even at some point in the middle of the process, sometimes you'll have a kid that goes back fine for weeks and then out of the blue, they refuse. There's a lot of reasons we could talk about why, but regardless, they're refusing to go back with you. So you have to recognize that's where they are and it is their choice. So you continue to use the exact same skills. You reflect and you give choices. You remind them of the option to go back. I often will say, I wonder if you think you're ready to go back to the playroom yet. And if they say no, then we continue to sit. So it does not mean that you waste a session. It does not mean that you're quiet. It does not mean that you don't say anything. You continue to reflect and track and offer choices and do whatever you need to do that you would normally be doing in the therapy session in the playroom. I will give you a disclaimer. It is often helpful unless a parent is really on board, really trusts you, and really will just give in to whatever's going on. Parents will often try to coerce and convince and negotiate and bribe the child to go back. That is undermining the entire process. So sometimes it is helpful to have them go to the other side of the lobby, to go out to their car, to go somewhere else so that they are not watching and listening and aware of what's happening, because in their mind, the child is not doing, quote, what the child is supposed to do, end quote. And they don't understand that the child is supposed to do whatever the child does. So they have to be able to stop parent mode and let you have therapist mode. And if they can't, politely let them know they can wait in the car or they can go outside or they can go sit in a different area so that you can have the time with the child. So that is how I would suggest you handling a child not going back. Keep in mind, it does not matter whether the child eventually goes back or not. So that therapeutic hour is helpful and significant and meaningful. And when the child feels that he is not forced to go back, not coerced to go back, not bribed to go back, then it's a measure of responsibility and power and control and balance. And when the child's ready, he will go. So what do we do when a child wants to leave the session early or tries to dart out of the playroom or tries to go out and see mom or dad or whomever in the lobby? So you really kind of have to get a sense of which children are more likely to do this than others. There are some kids that I know will never, ever try to leave a play session early, even if they ask to. And then I have others that I know they are likely to try. So you kind of have to just be aware of each individual child and know what their propensities are. However, if you have a child that you think is likely to dart out or leave or try to escape, I'm air quoting escape because we're not holding them hostage, but if they're trying to make a mad dash out the door, one technique that's really helpful is to sit your chair in front of the door. So any simple barrier can be enough to help a child realize that they're not supposed to be doing that anyway. So if your chair is normally, let's say, on the opposite side of the room, turned inward, you can sit in front of the door and turn your chair inward, and it's just one extra obstacle to leaving. So if you're sitting in front of the door, it's very difficult for the child to get past you to leave. So that is one simple approach that you can use that still honors the child-centered model. You also need to be aware there are going to be times that you might have to sit with your back against the door on the floor, holding it shut. You might have to hold the door handle so that it can't be opened. There will be times when you will have to prevent the child from leaving, but you cannot do it without supporting it with the skills. In other words, you continue to reflect, you continue to validate, you continue to acknowledge, you continue to set limits, you continue to give choices. So blocking the door in and of itself does nothing therapeutically. But if you're holding the door saying, I know you really wish you could go out and see mom, but we still have 20 minutes left. When our 20 minutes are up, you can go out and see mom. Those are the types of things that you need to be saying while you are making sure that the child stays in the room. And the why is always that the playtime is 50 minutes. And I know some of you have like 45, but just in my world, it's 50 minutes. So when you come here, we play for 50 minutes. So that is the why. And then as far as why the child cannot dart out is the child has to be safe. So you can continue to reassure the child of those two things. When you come, every time you come, we have 50 minutes together and I have to make sure you're safe. It's my job to keep you safe. So those are the two reasons that you continue to reinforce as to why the child is not able to leave. And keep in mind, you never tell the child that if he chooses something, he chooses to end the session early. So Landreth's model is that you cannot earn playtime or you cannot lose playtime. So we cannot say if you choose to leave, you choose to end our play session early, because first of all, that should never be a consequence. But further, there are kids who don't necessarily want to be in there. So they're going to dart out and go, oh good, I ended my playtime early, which totally undermines the whole process. So it is never a reward. It is never a consequence. You can't earn it or lose it. So you just continue to acknowledge that we still have X number of minutes left. You really wish you could go out, but you're going to get to go out as soon as our time is up. You can choose to play or you can choose to sit. You can choose to talk or you can choose to not talk. You just continue to give choices, set limits, reflect feelings, all of the same things you would normally do. One final thought. You do not let a parent come back. So if a child is refusing to come back to the playroom and or a child is begging to go out to the lobby, the solution to either is never, absolute on purpose, that the parent can come into the playroom. So that is another strict limit that we hold. So we make it very clear when a child asks, we say, you really wish that you could have mom in here, but the playrooms are just for me and you. Or however you'd like to word that, kids only, parent-free zone, however you'd like to phrase it, but you're communicating the expectation that the playroom is only ever for you and the child. And so therefore, we're not going to use mom or dad coming back to get them into the playroom. We're not going to use mom and dad coming back to get them to stay in the playroom. Moms and dads and guardians and whomever are not part of the process. So therefore, that cannot be part of the negotiation or the deal that's made to get the outcome. And I think maybe I should pause on that note really quickly. There is no expected outcome here. The outcome is not that the child comes back to the playroom. The outcome is not that the child does what we want. The outcome is that the child operates within boundaries. And look, when a child does not want to come back to the playroom and or a child wants to leave early, it's an opportunity to practice self-regulation. It's an opportunity to practice self-control. It's an opportunity to practice complying with limits. So there are so many valuable therapeutic things taking place when a child is fighting on either of these topics. But the goal is never make the child do what we want the child to do. It's meet the child where they are, communicate the be with attitudes, preserve the relationship, and make sure that clear expectations have been set. And all the while, whatever the child needs to do, the child does. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that answers some of your questions. And as always, if you have further discussions that you'd like to have, reach out to me. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.